Heather Daybell took the stand and stirred the pot, as Chad likes to say, and we're going to talk about some of the highlights of her testimony in today's video. Hello, Sofa Squad, and welcome back to the sofa. Sofa's back here. Roscoe's on it. He just had a hearty little meal, so he's ready to take a nap. And my name's Paul. I'm always ready to take a nap, but not today, because we're going to be talking about some very interesting testimony in the Chad Daybell case. Specifically, Heather Daybell. This is his sister-in-law. We're going to talk about some highlights of her case. I've got a bunch of clips from this, y'all, so buckle up, because this could take a minute. There was a lot of stuff I hadn't heard yet. That was very interesting to me to hear from her perspective. So the way we'll do the video is I'm going to put the clips up and then we'll talk about them after each clip and kind of round it out at the very end. And that is it. Now, if you do want to follow Roscoe and I outside of this old YouTube thing we're stuck in over here, or we're on the Instagram, it's on the screen. It's in the description. Good Lord, just get to clicking. All right, let's go ahead and look at that first clip.
How would you describe the nature of your relationship with Chad?
In the beginning, when Matt and I first were married, it was normal as any in-law relationship would be. And then, like I said, we moved away. We didn't live close, but when we'd get together, we would talk mainly about his books. That seemed to be the topic most of the time of conversation, but I would say cordial and nothing out of the ordinary.
At any point, did the nature of your relationship with him change?
It did, yes.
When did it change?
2014, when he started talking about end of times events and discussing a book that he had published for Julie Rowe.
Well, it would not be a Chad Daybell video without the mention of Julie Rowe. So this, to me, right here was so interesting, just right off the bat, starting off, hearing from, again, his sister-in-law. Now, remember, this is Chad's brother's wife. I'll make sure I'm saying all that. So hearing this kind of perspective from her, and her being someone who is going to hear the stuff that Chad's coming up with, but almost like the process of it, of, starting here with Julie Rowe. For those who don't know, Julie Rowe was like part of this, she was very big in like predictions and this kind of stuff, and they'll get more into it later. You can find her on TikTok, you can find her on, I don't know if she's on YouTube anymore, but she's out there. She's very much into this preparing of people, a vow, like this whole Chad Daybell, Lori Daybell, like this kind of stuff, like this offshoot or whatever. And we'll hear later that, she's got a big following, right? Which is alarming. So it's interesting to hear that a lot of this starts jumping off. Now, I'm going to say this later on, but I'm going to go ahead and say it now because I'm thinking of it. One thing that I do think that Chad does is he will mimic others. He will hear somebody's story, hear somebody's testimony, hear somebody's whatever, and he will regurgitate it in his own way, like, oh, yeah, well, I had a past life too. Yeah, I've done that, but I've done it better than you. Yeah, so there's that. That's how he is, okay? And so I feel like he completely did that with Julie Rowe. I feel like he did it with a lot of other people. So let's now continue.
We'll come back to that, but how did this relationship change at that point?
I was concerned about the things that he was telling the family and telling Matt and I. I was not comfortable with what he was informing us with.
Will you please elaborate to the jury what were the things that Chad was saying or teaching you that caused you the concerns?
He indicated that there would be an earthquake that would be happening in 2015, and he was kind of making us aware and preparing us for all of these end times events that were going to happen and cause a lot of destruction in Utah, in particular Salt Lake area.
Now, one thing that's also interesting in hearing her testimony is this right here, where it's like he's preparing us for end times, all this destruction, all this, that, And one thing, and again, well, let me say this before I say that. I'm not familiar with the LDS religion or any of this stuff, so I know there's offshoots and things of this nature, but from my perspective, the sofa perspective, is hearing Heather talk about this, it's like, okay, here is, like, say, the traditional, these are our beliefs, this is what we go by. And then you have Chad over here who's like swooping in and trying to almost like wear bigger pants than he should be and doing things that he shouldn't be and just doing this offshoot stuff and almost like I declare myself the high and mighty kind of a person. And so certain people, April Raymond, Heather Daybell, you know, they see this and it's like, what? You know what I mean? Like you're not, this is almost like, for lack of a better word, like blasphemy, right? So hearing her describe this and him coming up with this whole end of times destruction, I've got to do this and you're going to do this, and starting to make these predictions, you can almost see how he was like casting a net out there and seeing who he could pull in. So you think Zulema, Lori, Melanie Gibb, people like this that it was like pulling in, and then others were like, yeah, no thank you. Like, I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm not about it.
Did he explain to you why he believed those events would occur?
Those were events that Julie Rowe had seen in a near-death experience. And so he had talked about those things with her as he published her book. And then he indicated he was seeing those things in vision as well.
Okay, that's what I was talking about a minute ago. He discussed that Julie Rowe saw these things, and then all of a sudden he starts seeing them. So you see how it's like, it's not even his original idea. He just grifted it off somebody. And then also we'll see the origins of his grifting and some of the stuff that Heather's going to be talking about, where you can just see where it's like, this guy uses this stuff to manipulate things, people, places, things to get where and what he wants. It's what his grift is. So he grifted Julie. He published her book. He takes her thought processes. He sees that she probably has a little following, and he wants part of that. So he goes in and starts having his own little visions, own little this and that, and runs with it. This man couldn't see 5 feet into the damn future, okay? 5 seconds, 5 feet, whatever you want to call it. It's just, he's a con artist is what he is.
And what happened in that conversation?
It was, excuse me, it was asking him point blank to give us the details of why he felt he needed to make this move. And he indicated that, and in particular, the houses that he was looking at were very close to our home, and we had some concerns with that. He told my husband and I that we would become great leaders in this gathering of people that would happen because of all the destruction in Utah, that our land where we lived would help in that, and that our home would become like a church or a temple. He was telling us those kinds of things.
I mean, y'all, drinketh from the damn cuppeth. We're not even, 10 minutes in the video. First of all, God bless Heather right here. Okay, first of all, I love the fact that she's like, okay, well, that's real cute and everything, but I know, and I don't want you living in my neighborhood. I love that. Okay, let me say this. This is a normal reaction to Chad's BS, okay? This is what a well-balanced human being would say to the BS that Chad is selling. This is your reaction, like, okay, and then she's damn family, so she has to kind of somewhat be, you know what I mean? Like, she's gonna be seeing him along the way is what I'm getting at. She can't completely be like, get away, right? But now here's the other thing. So you see how the grift starts. He wants to move there, which is so weird. It's like, it's an entire country, yet you have to move into their neighborhood, right? I'm like, are you kidding me? So there's that. But then number 2, where he goes in for the, well, great destruction is going to happen, but you'll play a role in that. You'll be the leaders of it. Your house will be a temple. Can you see how someone who is attention seeking or things of that nature would latch onto that and be like, oh, I could have the church. My house could be the new temple. You know what I mean? This is what he does. Thank God they were like, no, because here's my thing. You don't know who would still be alive and who wouldn't at this point in time dealing with them. Okay, period, end of story. You see death and destruction. There's no one, there is no love there, right? Brother, sister, no, he would get rid of you if he needed to, okay? So him sitting here and going in there and pulling this little cheap trick of, oh, well, you're going to be this in the new times and all this type of stuff. Again, I just stand by that. Just look at the people who were bought into this, and you can kind of see how this all took place.
Did he ever explain to you whether he had seen or believed that he would have any kind of a significant role in this?
Mainly just that he would be helping in this gathering of people with their tents and everything, that he would be helping in that cause.
So based on what he was telling you, did he perceive his need to move to Rexburg to be something he could do to fulfill his role?
Yes, that he had a part to play in that. Mhm.
Did you believe these visions or teachings at the time that Chad was sharing?
No, I did not.
Again, you heard her. Did you believe these? No, I did not. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Because it's literal just, and again, I don't know. I'm jumping. So many thoughts are going through my head. I apologize. Because I don't know the structure of their religion, of their church, of this type of stuff. But again, it's like if you equate it to, like, I'm sitting here just thinking of more structures of religion that I am more familiar with. And for someone to come along like this, it literally would just be some kind of blasphemy where I'm like, what? Like, you're pretending to be God or something? Are you kidding me? You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of how you would look at it. Just like, what are you talking about? You know, I don't believe this. You're not even qualified. Like, who are you, right? Why are you doing this? Almost like this, like, what do you want, Chad? Because that's what this is giving. You know how, like, people approach you in, like, the grocery store parking lot, and it's like, hey, pardon me. It's like, what do you want? I'm saying, what do you want? I know you're not just coming up and say hello to me. What do you want? You know, that's what Chad's energy gives with this.
Then help the jury understand, why was that a concern to you? If you didn't believe them, why was it concerning?
Because he had let us know he was intending, he was going to let people be knowing of this with Julie Rowe's book, and trying to prepare people as all this destruction happened, um, that's why he was coming, and that he felt that we were going to be helping in that cause.
She was embarrassed. I don't blame her, okay? And two, it's just because they'll say there's only two Daybell, like, there's only two Daybells in this town, right? This is not a big place, right? So for him to be coming in there talking about, I'm going to be promoting Julie Rowe's book and doing this and doing that, it's like, are you kidding me? And my last name is Daybell, and you're going to be coming out with this stuff? Oh, absolutely not.
So further, if you don't believe them, why was there a concern that you had that he would be telling everybody about this?
Because in the belief system I had at that time in the LDS church, just some average person doesn't get information specific like that to share with others. In my belief at the time, we had a prophet of the church that would let us know if we needed to do anything to prepare for something like that. So in my understanding and how I had been taught, it wouldn't come through someone like Chad.
You know, that was just a blow to his ego. This is what I'm talking about. It was almost like he couldn't get to where he wanted to naturally in the church, so he just started doing it himself. It was like a Cheap Trick. Again, that's the name of this video, I think, Cheap Trick. It was not a group in the 80s or something, Cheap Trick. But he couldn't get to where he wanted naturally, so he just started writing these books and just making it up as he went. Grifting other people's stories. He was like, oh, Julie Rowe seems to be really popular. She saw some things in her past life, and when she broke the veil, I think I'll copy her. And I think that's literally how his mind worked. When we hear the way he's described and the way he just, and we see him, right? Hi, my name's Chad. I'm very excited right now. Oh, I'm so excited. I just can't hide it. I'm about to lose control, shimmy, shimmy, and I think I like it. You know, that's excited for him, okay? I think he's just literally over here, beep, beep, waiting for the next thing, right? Julie Rowe comes by, she's got a book, beep, 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 beep. We'll hone in and copy that. I really think that's how his brain works. He sees Lori, beep, 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 beep. She's cute. He's that simplistic.
So let me ask you this way. If you didn't believe these things, why do you need to care about it if he's out teaching this stuff to people?
because my opinion was that was incorrect and that he was spreading that around to other church members. And that's, as I was taught, you don't do that.
Okay. So during this conversation that you were referring to in your home, did you ever confront Chad or tell him that you don't believe these things?
I did. I told him that I wasn't feeling good about what he was saying, and that I did. I was very blunt. I just flat out said, I don't believe what you're saying.
What was his reaction to you?
Chad doesn't show a lot of reaction, so it was just, okay. That was about it. He didn't argue or anything like that.
Well, that's fine. That's your decision. I can hear it now. Now, also, again, notice she said when the thing before about, her belief system at the time that a prophet is the one who does this, not Chad, number one. Number two, he's trying to be like, well, why do you care? Almost like, why are you being some busybody? It's not in your business. You don't care. Because it's her last name, too. He's coming to grift the church. That's exactly how I read into this. He's getting ready to grift the church under my name with some BS. I've got to save my face and put it forth to be like, yeah, this is what's going on. I don't want any part of this. I already saw the grift he came at me with. This is some next level stuff. We need to make everyone aware of this, right? And again, look at where it ended up. Okay, so of course, thank God she was like this, because I love the way she's like, yeah, I told him I don't believe it. Like, she just stood up to him. Remember when Lori went down to April, if you've been following this, so I don't even know, I can't remember if she's come up in this one yet, but when Lori went down to April in Hawaii to try and grift her, and she's like, yeah, no, like, what are you talking about? Like, this doesn't even make any sense. These are the voices of reason when they hear this story, right? It's just like this level of blasphemy, and I just keep saying that, but it's the only word I know to use. It's like they're using this belief system and contorting it and twisting it around and going and manipulating others with it. And again, if you cast your net wide enough, you'll pull people in, and they pulled people in that they can manipulate and get to do their bidding for them.
Did you express concerns about whether or not he should move near you?
Yes, Matt and I both did that. We decided years and years ago that we wanted to live apart from family. We do better that way as a couple, and had made a home for ourselves in Rexburg. We'd been in the area 15 years at that point. And we did express to him as he was looking at homes near us that if he needed to move to Rexburg, that was fine. Please just move somewhere not right in our neighborhood and not in our ward.
And what does he do? He just runs right to it like a moth to the flame. But I love how candid and how real she is. We do better not being around family. This is what we did. So when we decided to move here, we're like, hey, cool, great. Can't wait to see you. We need you to be about 10 miles away though, right? And again, everything here has proved her reasonings, right? You see, can you imagine having to deal with him on a daily basis if you don't have to, like being like in this type of relationship, like it's your brother, it's your sister-in-law, your brother-in-law, whatever. I mean, you don't want to live near that. And this is why it seems to me that they just saw him as this little dweeb, because that's kind of what he is. He's just this little weasel of a man.
Why was it important to you that he not move in your neighborhood and ward?
Because I knew why he was coming, and I didn't want him trying to draw in people from my ward and having people associate his close proximity to us that we were involved or agreed with him.
See, 100%. This is exactly why, because he was coming with this BS. She saw it coming from a mile away. They had the same last name, and this is horrible. I mean, look at where we're at now. Look at murder and mayhem has ensued, right? All in the name of Lori Daybell, his goddess. I mean, it's disgusting and it's tragic all at the same time, because obviously of what we see took place, right? It's a breath of fresh air to hear someone who is not of this, ilk or whatever you want to call it, but like that was involved with it that knew enough to say this is no. This isn't right? And I'm not saying she's the only one, but it's just refreshing, like, once you get through all the other testimony of these people who were just kind of along with it and not saying anything. You know, if more people had taken this tone in the beginning where they were being grifted and whatnot, we might not be here today.
We had gone and looked at homes. The conversation at that point, they said they didn't find a home that they liked. And so they just kind of put it all on pause, asked if they could store their stuff in a shed or something at our house in case they needed to quickly come to Rexburg. They'd have some supplies there. We told them they could do that. So when they left from that trip, we were under the impression that they wouldn't be moving soon.
Now, this is the part that I think with Chad, this is a good example of how he lies and manipulates and moves. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think he's that smart, so I don't think he's that pre-plotted, but I think he's that scummy because, in essence, they end up just moving. They do exactly what they asked him not to do, right? But you hear her, oh, we had this idea that this wasn't happening, this, that, and the other, and everything, as we will learn in here, is always done under the guise of a vision, of I have information, this is going to happen, we're here to save the world. And for someone as mundane as Chad, that must be the only way to feel excitement, to feel like you have mattered.
I was relieved at that point, so I kind of didn't worry about it because he indicated they wouldn't be coming. So, but to me, it felt, I don't know if I'd even say, well, it was strained. It was strained at that point. I was struggling.
How was it strained? Could you explain that?
Again, it was just my concerns with his trying to convince his family and others that these events were going to happen. And so as he wasn't going to let up on that he was quite certain. We asked him, is this happening? And he said, this is happening. And so,
may I interrupt you?
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean by this is happening?
All of these events, the earthquake and everything, that those things were happening in 2015.
You know, he felt so important. Like, he really did something with that. You know, he was just like, oh yeah, everybody, look, I've got these visions. Now, I know I haven't ever really done that much in life outside of this, okay? But now, behind the veil, behind the scenes, I'm getting these visions. I do have special communication, just letting y'all know. I mean, I can just see just as proud as a peacock, right? Cannot roll my damn eyes hard enough at this mess. Let's keep going.
And we'll come back to that for a moment. Can you please explain to the jury what, at the time that Chad started having these visions and sharing them in 2014 or 15, what was your relationship like with Tammy?
About the same. We were cordial and friendly, and when we'd see each other at family events, we would visit, just normal.
Did that ever change?
Once they moved to Rexburg, because she knew we weren't happy about that move, you know, we talked and things as they moved, and I tried to do a few things to help her. So I wouldn't say off the bat that it was strained with Tammy. That progressed as time went on.
I feel like the way Heather described Tammy in this situation was, Tammy was almost like, well, obviously an innocent bystander in the way that her life was taken, but an innocent bystander to her husband Chad's behavior. You know, because you hear Heather talking, and it's like, well, we wouldn't have a problem with Tammy then, you know, and it wasn't Tammy. It's like, but of course, that's Chad's wife. She has to kind of go along with him, and we'll hear some testimony here in a minute about, you know, her thought processes on Chad's beliefs and what that went down with. And listening to it, I was like, I just feel like Tammy had to go along with this, because it was almost like, that's my man, we have a family together, let me just go pray on it, and if I don't come back around to his train of thought, there'll be hell to pay. You know, kind of a thing. It's like the general vibe that I got, because I almost feel like Heather seems almost like she felt sorry for Tammy in that way. And not in like a I pity you as a human being way, but the fact that she was with, like, tied to Chad, basically. Now, I could be wrong. Let me know your opinion, but it's kind of the vibe that I got. Because that's how I felt listening to it, because obviously we also know now where being tied to Chad led her, right, to her demise. And I'm not blaming her for that. She had no idea, right? She married this dude and then he went off on this absolutely insane tangent over here. Chad, to me, always wanted to be something more than he was. It was just like that godforsaken book, One Foot in the Grave, where you would have thought he was the president of the United States, and he's just some, random person inflating his position at the cemetery. Same thing. He's always been trying to grift himself into this bigger than life role, and it just wasn't his thing. And Tammy, she had to be along for the ride for it.
In a conversation I had with Chad and Tammy, it was Chad that indicated that he would come home with these visions and he'd say new things, and she'd kind of look at him and roll her eyes, but then she would go pray on it and get an answer that he was right. So, especially concerning the move to Rexburg, she indicated that's how that went, is that he would come home with things, should be
Sustained.
Did you get any of this information from Chad, or was it just from Tammy?
well, the information of him receiving visions and bringing it to her and her kind of rolling her eyes, that was from Chad.
This is what I was just talking about. That right there. So the way she's describing the scene, I mean, think about it. They have kids, she's working, this and that, and she has a Chad, who's coming home. I was digging graves today and had a vision. I think that we need to go do this. Most likely going to cost her money. They did not make tons of money, right? And I think that's another thing, that when Lori came along for Chad, it was also like, number one, it was like, oh wow, she's like this total hottie. But then also she offered money, right? Because he wasn't used to. And so I think that all that combination with Lori, we heard this, like, oh, she roll her eyes and, whatever, and then go pray on it and say she got to answer that Chad was right. The vibe that I'm getting from that is like, just keep the friendship going. I'm just agreeing to keep things on a even kit. We're keeping things on par here. You know what I'm saying? I could be wrong, but it's the energy that I'm getting from it.
He said that to me.
Okay. Did he explain that Tammy would ever change her mind?
I don't recall him saying she'd change her mind. I don't recall that.
Just based upon your interaction then, did you ever come to believe that Tammy was accepting of his visions?
I took it, yes, that she was. After some time, if it was something that seemed off to her, strange, she'd pray about it and then get a confirmation.
And see, that's what I'm talking about. It'd be one thing if he was walking in the door and it was like, oh no, Tammy was calling me up talking about, girl, you need to get in on this ground level. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not the vibe Heather's given about it. It's, if it was something like this, she'd pray on it, she'd come back around, she'd do this, she'd need her arm twisted a little bit, that kind of thing, right? So that's just the energy I get from it. And, again, at the end of the day, sadly, Tammy is no longer here because of this very belief system and Lori Daybell.
What they may have said. Did you ever come to get a feel or believe whether or not they were accepting of their father's visions?
From my observation, yes, they all believed his visions.
Did that appear to be true with all the children?
Yes.
Was there ever a time that Chad tried to engage your children and explain these visions to them?
Yes, my second child, my oldest son, came to Matt and I. This would have been 2014-ish, maybe. Chad had approached him and told him that he would be a leader in this.
Everybody's going to be a leader. My first thing, as soon as she said that, is I'm like, what's he trying to get out of your son? What's he trying to manipulate out of him? Because that's where they start off with, oh, you're going to be a leader. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, I saw it. Your house, it's going to be a temple. You're going to be leading people. I'm talking important stuff. Okay, VIP section. And to me, it's just like that's part of his growth, right? Now, also, how ballsy to go approach your nephew, your brother's child, with that after you know she doesn't like it? Seriously? Like, he was all but just like standing on the corner, grifting with a little change bucket. You know what I'm saying? Now, the part where she was talking about his kids believe the belief system and whatnot, here's my thing. Imagine you're growing up with a person like Chad. And number one, that's your father, and so it's going to be a slow roll into this whole thing of you're not going to realize it all at once. Now, this jarring of mom's dead, dad's remarried, that's like, what? But you heard in the other video we watched of the police interview at the car with Emma and Chad, where she's talking to Lori for Chad. Now these are like young adults at this point, but I'm going back to just imagining growing up with a father like Chad your whole life, right? There's no telling what lies and manipulation he's groomed them with. Because, you see what he's willing to do to grown adults.
And so in a later conversation, I did confront Chad on that and asked him not to approach my children.
How did Chad react to that confrontation?
Same way. Okay.
Was there ever a time that you had any confrontations with Chad in your backyard?
We had, once they had moved to Rexburg, so again, summer of 2015, shortly after that, I was concerned for Tammy and wanted to know how she was doing. So we asked Chad and Tammy to come over and have a visit with us. And he indicated that that would be fine, but to direct our questions or whatever we wanted to say at Chad and not at Tammy, because she would get upset at us if we directed anything at her.
Had you had any history prior to that with Tammy getting upset with you about anything?
No.
This is what I'm talking about. So you can only imagine that it was in her best interest to just go along with stuff. Yep, I prayed and it's cool. What is it you're wanting to do? Go to Rexburg. Okay, we'll move to Rexburg. It's cool. That type of thing. Chad was planning this situation. To me, sounds like he tried to control Tammy, control the household, keep a thumbs down on the narrative, especially when all this BS started coming up. It was like he was already working towards that. And, there's a certain level of just using it to get what he wants. And so by the time Lori came along and he saw, I want this, and she was like, I want him. Oh, it was a wrap, right? He was already ready to use this as an excuse just to get Tammy out of his way. And you heard her say, we've never had an issue with Tammy. That's what I'm talking about. I don't think that Heather and them had an issue at first with Tammy. It was like more like Chad and by proxy Tammy. And she just gets swooped in with this stuff because probably left to her own devices, she wouldn't be this crazy stuff he's coming home with. It's like somebody with too much damn time on their hands, for as far as Chad goes.
Had you prior to that or since then, ever seen any other behavior that may have caused you concern between Chad and Tammy?
No, they seemed like a happy couple.
Before or since that, did Chad ever try to stop Tammy from talking or others from talking directly to her?
Not that I'm aware of.
So that was the only incident?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How did he react when you continued to address Tammy?
Pretty typical. He didn't react. We just had a conversation. He didn't seem upset or anything that I was talking directly to her.
What was the result of that conversation with Chad and Tammy?
My main intent for that conversation was to ask if Tammy was doing okay with the move, because I knew she was initially not wanting to move to Rexburg. And she again said she had prayed about it and felt like it was a good thing for their family. So said okay, and then talked a little bit further with Chad about his visions and things. And I again said, I don't have any confirmation in myself that any of that's true or going to happen.
There you go. So you hear all that. She didn't want to move to Rexburg or out to where they were, but then she prayed on it. And I guess it would be good for the family. She talked to Tammy directly. Any reaction from Chad? Nope, just the usual. Just a little bump on a log. It's what he is, and he's coming out with these visions and stuff. And clearly, I just think it started off as just a way for him to feel more important. Yeah, because here's the thing. Imagine, picture this right now. Say you haven't really done much in your life. You want to make a meeting. You want to do this or that. You meet somebody. They come on. They have these visions. They got people buying their books. And you're like, damn, I want in on that. So you're like, I know what I'll do. I'll say that there's going to be some crazy BS is going to go down. Some earthquakes, they happen all the time somewhere. It can't be that damn wrong. I'll say, 2015. You know what I mean? Like, I can see his train of thought. And this is the thing that always gets me with a lot of these types. Why don't they say the mass devastation is going to happen? Like, if I say I was going to come out tomorrow with this, I'd be like this. I'd be like, it's going to happen in 2242. Y'all aren't going to know if it happened or not. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to be long gone with that by then. I don't know why they always have to make it. And I get the sense of urgency. Like, come on. We have to do this. But I'm like, but people are going to know that it's not going to happen. So then what do you do then? You can only be wrong so many times. But people will go along with it. But, I mean, that's just what blows my mind. I'm like, just put it out a couple 100 years. Surely by then something major would have happened. So if there is record of your predictions, they'll be like, man, that was true. Remember that big earthquake? It did happen.
Did you get any indication from Chad's responses or reactions to you rejecting his beliefs? Did that affect him in any way that you could tell?
No, there's usually very little reaction. So it was just kind of nods and that was it.
This is another interesting component of Heather's testimony, was learning just this kind of stuff here. No, there's nothing to him. It's not that he's shell-shocked that he's in jail or prison or whatever, that he did all this. This is just his personality. Well, okay, I'll just roll over and let that happen. It's whatever. That's just him. He doesn't offer anything. It's just like there's a whole bunch of nothing behind those eyes.
How far away was their home from yours?
It's about a half a mile. You just go to the end of our street and turn onto Salem Highway, and they're about a half a mile down the street.
Can you see each other's homes from standing outside? Do you have that vantage point?
No, you'd have to go to the highway to see their house because there's a bend, so not directly from my house. But once you turn onto the highway, it's right there.
But if you wanted to walk, you're estimating a half of a mile?
Mm-hmm.
Chad, we don't want you living in our ward, in our neighborhood, or any of this. And how far away is their house? Half a mile? I'm like, who does that? It's like he was trolling them. It's almost like he's like, well, I'm going to move here. I'm going to move right across the street. You know what I mean? I'm just like, I swear it's like someone who intentionally gets under your skin. That part had me on the damn ground, okay? I was like, are you kidding me? And he's grifting your church? This guy, I mean, we're talking grade A loser.
Are you aware of any other purposes for that room?
No.
And I think you said you had to go up some stairs to access it?
You do, yes.
Were you familiar with where Tammy and Chad's bedroom were in that home?
Okay, the reason I'm putting these in here, this clip and the next clip we're going to watch, remember when so the video I did that we talked about the testimony of people at the funeral and all that kind of stuff. And Pryor got up there talking about there's stairs at the house, there's stairs here, there's stairs that. Here we go, right? That's just the part that really upsets me when we see these cases where people are allowed, and by people I mean the defense attorneys, state, whoever, to twist things around that just make it seem like it's not true when it is. And it pisses me off.
Yeah, you'd go through the front door. They had a front living room, then just a hallway, and there were some bedrooms. I'm not exactly sure which bedroom was theirs, but their bedroom was down in the main part of the home.
So if you want to leave their bedroom and go to the cozy cone or vice versa, you'd have to go up or down some stairs?
Yes, you would.
Again, I just wanted to put that in there. He made sure to cover that. Stairs. Pryor's over there talking about, I'm not going to mention one more thing about my house because that is his house now. We already went through that debacle, right? And one thing, side note, so with all this, so I'm reading your comments in the video about the last video I did on Chad, which was about Pryor talking about what happened to Tammy and describing well, so two people did this or that, whatever. And so many of you have said the same thing that I commented on with Pryor is giving me a very realistic, believable picture of what went down. And as his defense attorney, I would 100% not be doing that, okay? And so same thing here. So this is one thing where Pryor it's a good thing that he's not coming back at this, because it's like, dude, don't touch that. You've already had the bell rung that you own the house now, right? We don't need to talk about the house anymore, especially when it's being shown that we're being slimy about what's in the house or the layout of the house or any of that stuff. No, that's off limits. That's a bad boy.
Matt and I were at a work conference in Las Vegas, and we're in our hotel room the morning of October 19th when Matt got a phone call from his parents letting him know that Tammy had passed away. And they didn't know much, but they would call us when they had more information, but just letting us know she had passed.
How did you react to that information and that phone call,
I was very upset.
other than just grief? Was there anything else causing you to be upset?
Just not knowing what happened, having no information, and just she couldn't understand what would have happened.
As did so many people, right? Hearing from the inside voices who didn't have an attachment to Chad's BS, that, again, the voice of reason. We're shocked what happened. What? She died? And it only gets worse when Lori Daybell comes along the scene just a few days later. This is, again, is the normal reaction that you hear from the neighbors, from people like that, of just being in shock. But then also, as we're getting ready to hear, Heather goes into it, not just that reaction from, like, say, oh my God, this is shocking, but Chad's continued reaction. It was so obvious. It was all he could do not to do cartwheels through town being excited about this, that he could finally move on, finally pursue his goddess Lori.
Can you please tell the jury how that call went? What did you first say, and how did Chad respond?
So just expressing my sympathy and shock that Tammy had passed away, and asked him what had happened, if he could explain to me what had happened.
What did he say?
He said that Tammy had not been feeling well, that she, about 10 o'clock at night, started coughing pretty hard, and then got to sleep. And then about midnight, she started coughing again hard enough that she vomited, got her settled down. And then he said at 6 a.m, he'd slept from midnight to 6 a.m, and woke up because the sheet that was on him had come off of him, and he heard a thud, and that woke him up. And he went to the other side of the bed and saw that Tammy had fallen off the bed, and he described her as she had died. She had been gone for a little while because she was hard. And so he called to Garth to come in and help him get Tammy back on the bed.
How did you react to that explanation of things?
But the whole time he was explaining that, it felt scripted to me, he was reading it or something. It just felt very scripted. It was the word that came to my mind, and it made me feel very uneasy.
Again, this is the normal reaction that you're going to hear when people present this. Scripted. I felt uneasy. It didn't feel right. The story itself, if you look at the evidence we hear from the most recent medical examiner who got on there, was like, this is not natural causes. It doesn't make sense. And again, Chad has so many versions. You would like to have thought he came up with a scripted version to cover his tracks, but clearly he didn't, or he would deviate from it. And the whole thing about like, oh, the thing is she rolled out of bed. How do dead bodies roll out of bed? This is my question. I'm not sure what he was trying to, like, I would love to see him on one of those little chalkboards describing and drawing out the chain of events that took place so we could see it. Why did she roll out onto the floor? I'm not getting this. Are you saying that you pulled the sheet and she rolled out? Like, I have so many questions. I'm saying this in the context of if we believe Chad. I don't believe Chad, right? I believe that he killed her and then bought time and like sat there with her until it was time to go get his son. You know what I'm saying? To come like do the whole thing or whatever. And entering into the 911 phone call, all that. But again, just like Heather said, it felt off. It felt scripted because it was.
Did you say anything to him about that scripted feeling or anything else?
I did not. I asked him if he was going to have an autopsy done to find out why she had passed, and he said no, that a coroner had come and looked at Tammy and could clearly see that there was matter in her throat, that's why she had died, as she had coughed hard and thrown up, and that had caused her death. So there was no need for an autopsy.
And that was Chad's explanation to you. Sorry.
Yes, it was.
Cannot, but I'm speechless. Thank God that now this evidence is coming out, because the way Chad just lined this whole thing up. And again, this probably took place in this situation of, oh, you know what, here, okay, I get, oh, grieving husband, this or that or whatever, right? I don't know how he pulled it off, but he did. And again, look at the multiple stories that have gone on with this. That's the other shocking part, that it's just, none of them could keep up with any of the lies they were telling. I would argue that Lori was probably a little bit better at it than Chad, because just hearing the evidence has come out just on Tammy's situation, where I'm like, it was like they didn't care. It was just like, what do I need to say to make you go away right now? Okay, yeah, this is what happened. She fell out of the bed, whatever. That kind of energy is what I get from it. The whole crowd cannot roll my eyes hard enough. Let's keep going.
What else did you talk about in that conversation?
He informed me that the funeral would be in 2 days. And I said, well, Matt and I aren't even home. We're in Las Vegas. Can you wait so we can get home? Matt had another brother that was out of town as well, and just said, can you wait till we can all get home to be to the funeral? And he said, no, we're just going to get it done.
Did you say any follow-up in that conversation about that?
I said, okay, we will buzz back and get to the funeral.
No, we're just going to get it done. Family's all out of town, 2 days. He wanted that because he knew we've got to get this body buried. He didn't think forward to think that all this was going to blow up to the point where it did and they exhumed her and everything. He knew we have to get this body in the ground. We cannot have her out too much. And two, I also think he was just ready. He was like, Lori's waiting on me. We're ready to go. She's got her little wedding ring. She's got her little ukulele for me. We're ready to go to Hawaii.
And in fact, did you do that? Did you attend the funeral?
We did, yes.
And where was the funeral at?
The funeral was in Springville, Utah.
What observations did you make, if any, at the funeral?
The main thing I remember, the program was just Chad and his children, and the bishop spoke at the end. And the thing that stuck out was the opening song was "Put Your Shoulder to the Wheel." I have never heard that song used at a funeral, so that seemed strange to me.
Couple of things. Number one, the song is about work and working hard and stuff like that. Number two, which is interesting, it's like, what was he trying to say about that? It's something subliminal, almost like, look, I'm having to do the Lord's work and really gather up these 144. But then also, that this was like his time to shine, where he was like, I get to be up at the podium in front of everybody and talk. Like it was like a self-serving thing to him to get up there and like lead this, service, if you will.
Why was it so unusual to pick that song, Put Your Shoulder to the Wheel?
Because that song is describing, put your shoulder to the wheel, push along, do your duty with a heart full of song. It's about working. It's just about work. So that was strange to me at a funeral.
Yeah, but not for Chad, right? Again, he probably viewed what took place with Tammy as work, but he's also probably trying to say, keep going, everybody. Don't stop and look. Nothing to see here. Let's work through. Let's power through. Let's keep doing what we got to do, people. Don't pay attention to the man behind the curtain over here, right? We don't need to look at any of that going on.
Okay. Anything else that you observed at the funeral that concerned you or you thought may have been unusual?
Just watching Chad as he spoke, and maybe it's just the way that he cries, but it seemed like he'd turn it on and turn it off and turn it on and turn it off, the crying. So it, to me, came across as kind of disingenuous.
Anything else?
No.
And it's not just you, Heather. So many people have said this. Us viewers who don't even know the man personally pick up on this. If you remember back to the other day during the testimony when they were talking about Tammy and they play the 911 phone call, he's sitting there and he's doing a little bit of a face. And then when Pryor touches him, he's like, beep, 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 beep. You know, it's, again, he turns it on and off, and it's very disingenuous. It's very fake. It's very performative. And I can only imagine it's even worse in person.
Kind of just observing Chad and his children. Again, it was strange to me that Chad could be smiling and seeing people and smiling and seemed to be doing well, and then crying all of a sudden. And it was a strange, his demeanor seemed strange to me.
And it seems strange to us as well, and numerous other people who describe the same type of behavior. And this is the thing. People, you know, human beings are simple but complicated, right? It's like people can sense things when they're not right, and sometimes we're wrong and whatnot. But when you start getting a pool of people that aren't really connected to one another, that are sensing the same type of stuff, and even us through the televisions and whatnot, or phones, however you watch this stuff. If you are hiding something like this, if you have done evil, if you have done, in this instance, you know, at this point, allegedly taken, you know, your wife's life or whatever, and you are hiding it, people can sense this. He was excited for her to be gone. He was excited to start his journey with Lori. It's hard to hide that when that is a part of your baseline of what's going on. And what's on top of it is you're having to be like, It's just like when you see these cases where the person, Letitia Stout, prime example, they don't want to go out and help search. They don't want to go out and do this because they know you're not going to find the body. They know it's a lost cause. They know the person's not coming home, right? Chad knows he was part of, you know, again, allegedly, at this point, her being gone. He was ready for this. He started gassing people up to already be, you know, predisposed to the idea of it, right? Like this was going to happen. Like it was the Lord's work or whatever. So, including to Tammy herself. So he already started gassing people up for this. So that's the thing. If that's in your heart, then it's going to show through and people can sense that and pick it up, right? And so many people coming back saying the same thing. I can't imagine what it would be like to be at a funeral of your loved one who you had a hand in taking out and having to pretend that you are upset over it. I mean, that would have to be, it would be so difficult, right? Because at the end of the day, you had a helping hand in them going, you're glad they're gone. But now you're having, and you would probably be annoyed, right? That you're having to sit there and be like, oh, God, another crying relative. You know, it would probably be annoying to you. And he probably was annoyed. We already know him and Lori sitting there texting back and forth. I have to go spend time with the family. I really am tired of this. I can't take much more of it. You know, that was the baseline. That was the outlook.
Later, was there any kind of a luncheon that you attended?
Yeah, after the service, there was a luncheon. We all got there and Chad was late. That's what I remember from the luncheon is that we weren't sure where Chad was.
Why did his lateness stand out to you?
Because it's his own wife's luncheon for her funeral. So I assumed he would be there with everyone else.
Not a bad assumption, Heather. I kind of would have too. I mean, there's not much to ask for. This is what I'm talking about. This is where the truth leaks out. You're late for the luncheon. I would have assumed he would have been there. Honey, he's probably out talking to Lori on the damn phone. If not, visiting, you know, in the damn portal with her. He was ready to go. So many of these people are lucky they're alive, his children included. And we've talked about this before. Obviously, his children were excluded from all this, you know, but not Lori's. But I would argue that if something came up to where she started talking about this one needs to go or that one needs to go, that might be part of it at that point. He probably would have gone along with it. Please hold, I have to drink it from the cup and all this. But, I mean, again, These are the voices of reason that we're hearing with testimony like this. I would have assumed he would have been there. We're not hearing some blasphemous, oh, well, the Lord cast a spell and we figured that that's why he was late because Zulema conjured up a damn storm. We're not hearing any of that because that's insanity, okay? So it's a breath of fresh air. When you hear people up there, Larry, Kay, the people who came at this in the way that one should have, where are the kids? What is this insanity they're talking about? It's what needed to have happened with all these people. And again, I'll say it 100 times, we probably wouldn't be here if several of these other people had stepped up and been like, what is going on here, right? Instead of pandering to these beliefs and going along with it until it was too late.
When Chad did arrive, did you observe anything about his demeanor or behavior there?
Yeah, it just seemed like a normal day. Like I wouldn't have guessed that he had just days previous lost his wife. He just didn't seem upset.
Now, the one thing with this, and I say this oftentimes when we're listening to testimony or if I'm giving my opinion on how people are acting and reacting, we're all different. We all handle trauma. We all handle loss very differently. And so I take that into account with this, right? And I also understand that I have a personal bias, like in this. Like I clearly have a bias against Chad, right? So I understand that I'm coming at it from that perspective. I'm not trying to be unbiased, right? I mean, I'm just kind of giving my opinion. So I get that. And like her talking about like, oh, he's acting this way after 3 days or whatever, again, because of my own personal bias of, yes, I do believe he had a hand in Tammy's dying. So there's that. And I think he was overjoyed when she was gone. But in a normal situation, it's like, think back to a normal situation where whether it's yourself, a loved one, somebody's passed, whatever. We all handle that differently. Maybe on day 3, hour 4, we're having a good moment and people will see that and be like, God, that's kind of odd, whatever. But also there's not the question on the table of, well, did they kill whoever it is, right? That's not going on. So Chad's behavior, I'm sure behind the scenes, well, one thing the evidence does show, I mean, first of all, he started this affair with Lori, so he's in marital bliss with Lori, but then having to turn that off or hide it and go to a funeral and be the weepy husband, which clearly he just wasn't able to pull off. So that's why I don't think when we hear things like, oh, he was acting this way or that way, I think that he authentically was just glad she was gone, right? It's not that he was just handling his trauma in a certain way or being, Chad who has no personality. Behind the scenes, he's igniting this whole crazy thing with Lori, and he can't disguise it.
Excluding any statements from other people besides Chad, why were you talking to Chad that day?
Because I had learned that he had gotten remarried and that his children were struggling and upset. So I reached out in a group text to his children and let them know that I was there for them if they needed me, that they were upset. And that resulted in Chad calling me.
Now, this part right here, Chad calling her and doing this and doing that. I mean, again, when he does decide to step up and whatnot, there's also this level, I'm kind of jumping from thought to thought here. So when she's describing him calling her, having like his version of a confrontation, things of this nature, that deadpan part to Chad for me goes from like, hello, to pure evil, where there's like no soul that would do anything to you. It's like this weird, it turns on and off for me with my vision of him. And I think that's probably why he's able to do the horrendous things that he did.
And please explain to the jury how the conversation went between you and Chad at that point.
I answered, he said, this is Chad. And he was upset with me and told me I had been a problem for him his whole life. And I asked him, who is this person you've married? And he explained her name was Lori. Would I like to meet her? And I said, no, I would not.
I mean, the balls to then turn around on the heels of this and bring Lori Daybell around. Do you want to meet her? I mean, come on. you've always been a problem for me. I mean, that's what I'm talking about, where that can be like, you've always been a problem for me. Where there's like nothing, you know what I mean? Like, not like he wouldn't care if he took you out or not, you know. And this whole thing of like, you've always been, he wants Tammy Daybell's. Yes, Chad, you were right. I prayed on it. You know, he wants that passiveness. Although I don't know how they would get anything accomplished because he seems completely passive too. But he wants that. Another thing too that I was thinking about with this testimony when I was thinking the way they were describing Tammy, and then you sit here and look at Lori, where remember how it's like he would roll his eyes like, oh, you know, I'd take this in that home, and Tammy would roll her eyes, but then she'd pray on it. Well, Lori's over here lapping it up. Tell me, you're so smart, you know, and giving him all that he wants. And again, to Chad, I'm going to say this way, to Chad, she's beautiful, Lori, or was, whatever, I don't know what he thinks now. The whole package was there. She's falling over him. She's the hot little blonde. You know, he got money, got this, got that. He can make his little profit dreams come true. He had hit the gold mine with her.
And then I asked him what happened to Tammy. And he said she died of a pulmonary embolism because she had gained 40 pounds.
Drinketh from the damn cuppeth. God bless Tammy. I'm so sorry she had to put up with this man for God knows how long. What, 30-some years? I'm sure it wasn't all bad or whatever. She did die because she gained 40 damn pounds. Now he'll go on to ask her, the state or whoever's questioning the attorney who's questioning her. And he's like, did you notice? And she's like, well, I didn't make it my business to keep track of people's weight, but I didn't notice. Like, you would notice 40 pounds, right? Chad's probably the one who gained the weight, okay, number one. And then but again, also another story. This is what blows my mind, is how many stories he has for Tammy's death.
How did you react to that when he gave that explanation?
I remember being so flustered by that explanation because he had given me a different one weeks before, that I was just upset, and he indicated to me, I'm going to be living in Hawaii, so you don't have to worry about me anymore. And that was the end of the conversation.
Again, we're all right there with you, Heather. He had given me another 1 week before. I was upset. I was flustered. I was like, anybody would. And then him polishing it off. I'm going to be living in Hawaii, my sweet Heather. You won't have to worry about me anymore. Well, thank God. Please stay. You know, I mean, honestly, at this point, because you know that she's got the wherewithal to be like, what's up? Like this, you know, from the beginning, like when no murders and stuff are going on, like this guy's not right. All the way to this now, where Tammy dies out of the blue, and now who's Lori? You're moving to what? You know, I haven't even gotten into the story about the kids yet. You know, so again, she knew. She saw this coming a mile away.
Just expressing to him, how can you get married this quickly after your wife has just passed away?
Did he give an answer to that?
He said that he'd met her about a year before, so he'd known her, and that she had lost a husband to a heart attack. And it just was, they were there for each other, and it just worked out that they'd get married.
You mentioned that one of the first things he said in the phone call was to the effect of, you've been a problem for me my whole life.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What did you take that to mean?
I said to him, your whole life? I didn't understand what I had done to him his whole life, that he would consider me a problem.
By not agreeing with him, by not fawning over him, by not saying he's the prophet, by not being one of his chosen 144,000. The list could go on. By not stroking his ego, basically. You know, the whole 9 yards. I met Lori a year ago. Again, this is the brazen part where you're going to introduce her. If I was him, and I did all this, oh, honey, you wouldn't hear Lori's name leave my lips for a long ass time, okay? Number one. Number two, I wouldn't be bringing her around talking about this is my new wife. Well, I think the coast is clear. It's been like 10 days. I don't think people will really notice at this point. I mean, I'm just trying to even think of what the logic that went through his mind was. I'm like, dude, are you kidding me? Like, this is so obvious at this point, especially when like Tammy just died out of the blue. Pretend that it was a scenario where like legit Tammy had been suffering from some kind of health something, right? 6 months, she was given a time to live by the doctor. We knew it was coming. And then he got hitched that quick. Oh, serious side eye, okay? Major side eye. You wouldn't encompass the dynamic of did he murder her in that as much, obviously, but it still would be incredibly tacky and incredibly tacky. Because then you just be calculating, how long have they been going out? You know, why would you get hitched with someone that fat? Like, it doesn't make sense, right? So, granted, if it had gone down naturally, where people knew it was going to happen, yes, maybe the murderous aspect would be taken out of it, but it would still be like sketchy. So on this right here, where there's all this sketchiness surrounding her death, it's even worse.
Anything else of note that you can remember that occurred in that conversation?
He did call me a pot stirrer. I remember that as well. Other than that, I think that's it.
He didn't explain what he meant by that.
I've been called that before by family members.
I mean, the fact that she's saying that the other family members have called her a pot stirrer and all this stuff, I'm going to probably make that on the title. That's too good to let go. And, you know, he called me a pot stirrer and all this. Well, she's asking questions. She's not just accepting anything at face value and going to pray and coming back and saying, yes, Chad. You know what I mean? Especially with him right here, right? You know, it's like, and again, I don't know Heather personally. I don't know what she's like in person or whatever, but, you know, I can kind of surmise by just what she's telling us here, which is what she's giving back to Chad, where I'm like, yeah, she doesn't sound like she puts up with like BS basically, right? Like if she sees something, she's going to kind of call it out. And a lot of times people don't like that because especially look at what Chad's trying to pull off here. You know what I mean? Now, if you water that down to just a normal family dynamic of like, say, when you don't have like murderous plots involved, obviously, right? Of people who are just like planning a holiday dinner and I'm going to do this, but Heather didn't like it, so she said something about it. You know, you can kind of envision a lot of times in a family, like the type personality that will kind of go head to head with people or whatever. And again, I'm not saying specifically she's that person, you know, but it's just interesting that she's saying that the rest of the family calls her a pot stirrer. And I can 100% see why Chad would. Yes, she's made his life difficult. She doesn't go along with his BS. And it's BS literally that he's trying to serve. The fact that he was trying to grift his own damn family, I'm just like, it blows my mind. It's like, it started off with brother and sister-in-law. And it was like, oh, okay, they didn't buy the grift. Who's next? Who's next? Who's next? Anybody got $1? You know, kind of a thing. It blows my mind.
So beginning of the year 2020.
And on that, how did you first learn about JJ and Tylee being missing?
I'd heard, and I've tried to remember, I can't remember exactly who told me, but that there was going to be, that there were 2 missing kids and we needed to be aware. So law enforcement, I don't remember, it's been a long time, but there were 2 missing kids and that it was going to be hitting the news. So all we were told is just to be aware that that was coming out, just kind of preparing us.
Again, preparing us, getting ahead of it, basically, is what he was doing. This is where it gets scary because you see how, you know, they were trying to get ahead of this stuff here. You know, there is a level that when you start looking at how the story unfolded and like how Lori's perspective versus Chad, it was almost like Chad was always rooted in this more reality thing where it was almost like you could tell there was a quicker layer to get to. He knew what they were doing was wrong and illegal, like the party was over type situation, whereas Lori kind of stayed in La La Land a little bit longer, maybe because it benefited her too, where she could play like the, I don't know, I'm just the doting goddess. I didn't know that those things were wrong. I mean, my husband told me, you know, that's what we needed to do. Like, I don't know what she was trying to do, right? Obviously, it ended in tragedy and murder and mayhem. But again, can you imagine what Heather was probably thinking when he starts, now we're onto the kids, and it's like, okay, wait, what? First of all the BS. Look at the timeline just presented to her with things and events that have taken place with him in a very quick succession. It's absolutely horrifying.
So back to the letter, what was the general subject or object of the letter that you sent out?
Well, again, I haven't read it for a long time, but it was basically because Chad was a relative of mine, you know, stick to the basics of the gospel, and because it appeared Chad had gotten off track, um, and I do remember putting in there that I had tried to say things to a few people, but I wasn't believed, and so I was having difficulty with that people had believed Chad um, at church and things, that he was doing everything as he should be doing, and that I was just trying to make things hard for him. So it's something like that I put in the letter.
Can you imagine the frustrating aspect to that? Being someone like her, especially hindsight now, and going back and being like, I mean, I'm not trying to say that she did this, but it's like I told y'all so. I was screaming from the rooftops, this dude is psycho, and here we are.
What was your purpose in sending the letter out? What were you trying to accomplish?
I did have some Relief Society presidents reach out to me concerned that some of their ward members were involved in meetings with Chad and things. So it was, as in a leadership position, trying to, and as a family member, saying, please just be wary of what's been going on.
And I mean, at least they did that part, right? Again, I ache for all the people who were, and I'm thinking Larry, Kay, Heather, people who were seeing April, people who saw this stuff coming, obviously Charles, and were trying to put a halt to it, but their voices didn't go heard, because again, one of the aspects that is going on is we're in the hindsight version and seeing the whole bigger picture, where before it wasn't like that. It was like one person taking one person's word, like, what's going on? And I don't even want to sit here and say that Chad's a charmer, or I mean, in some fashion he seems to be able to charm people. I don't see it. Lori, I can see a little bit more being able to pull off some things with some certain types of people, probably, but in the story she was doing about, oh, we're being harassed and this, that, and the other, at the beginning you don't know who to believe until things get sorted out. Well, obviously we now know it was too late, right? Because a lot of this stuff was done very soon into it, before anyone really had a chance to do anything, because again, they weren't expecting this. You don't expect people to do these horrible things to their children, to their spouses. So it gave them this shield to operate and do their evil and try and scoot off to Hawaii to do whatever the hell they were trying to do down there. I don't know, play the ukulele and retire. I don't know.
And I'll ask this question. Did those efforts cause damage to the relationship that you had with the rest of the Daybell family?
Yes, it did.
And is that damage part of the reasons why you no longer talk to his children?
Yes.
I mean, you know what? Unfortunately, it is what it is. Look, the proof is in the pudding. If it caused damage, look at what the outcome is. All these lives have been lost. I don't care how you try and dress up anything. This was about murder. This was about money. This was about revenge. This was about lust. This was about blasphemy. So many things. Not love, not religion, not any of that stuff, not family. And I'm talking, what I'm saying? Like, I'm talking like from Lori and Chad's perspective. So it's unfortunate to see that there's some kind of severed relationship. And at the end of the day, it's like there's dead children in the back of this man's yard. How could anybody speak against that or try to defend that? Is beyond me.
Okay. So in 2014, the books became an issue. Is that right?
No, in 2014, Julie Rowe's book became the issue that he was publishing.
Okay. And we're moving to an area that I intended to go into, because Julie Rowe was one of these people who went around the in particular, like 3 particular states, and she preached about preparing the people. Would that be fair?
You could use that phrase. She was not associated with preparing the people to group
Right.
the people. But yes, that was the purpose of what her books were, to prepare people for what was coming.
So notice she says the issues began when he was publishing her book. So she's bringing all these crazy ideas up, and Chad's liking them. Now you heard him also say she went around a few different states. The grift is strong with this one, y'all. But you'll hear in a second where she's got a following. I think Chad saw that, and I think Chad wanted that.
By someone such as myself who didn't agree with her book, but there were quite a few people in Rexburg who were listening.
And she was filling conference halls giving her speeches, was she not?
She filled the tabernacle in Rexburg. Yes.
Okay, and
It's a conference type center. Yes.
Okay, you guessed what I'm saying. So the tabernacle, that's a big building in Rexburg?
It seats around 2,000 maybe.
Okay, so she was going around preaching to primarily LDS folks about this preparing the people stuff, and she was filling tabernacles.
Okay, so look, let's wind this out, okay? Look at this process. Chad works with Julie. He's going to publish her book. It's controversial. He sees, Rexburg, she's selling out 2,000 seats, this, that, and the other, whatever it was. She's filling the tabernacle. It's all this big order. Oh, convenient. We need to move to Rexburg. That's the chosen land. He saw the grift. He wanted it. He grifted Julie. He stole her ideas. He starts doing his own BS, and he's going to go there and do that. I mean, it's almost like you can see the dim light, and it said, bzzz, idea, bzzz, idea. You know what I'm saying? And off he went running into Rexburg land or whatever. So, I commend Heather for getting up there, testifying, bringing this up here, for standing up. No, Chad, we don't believe you. Please don't move into our town. Please don't go to the church and grift everybody. I don't want to meet Lori. What happened to Tammy? That's what needed to happen along the way. And again, it did with her and several other people, but like with everybody involved in this, right? Because then it's hard to say, it's like to see something, say something, and get it. In this day and age, it can be difficult too, because you don't know what's going on. You don't know the full context. Am I being crazy? What will happen? And so when people call things out, it's amazing, right? Because again, here we are. All this loss of life, all this crazy belief system he cooked up with, all in the name of ego, most likely, is pretty much what it comes down to. Money, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, for me, hearing this dynamic and kind of this inside perspective of the family and how it worked, and her viewpoint of Tammy and him and this and that and the other, it really rounded out Chad's character to me. Honestly, I saw him as even more of a loser. And I mean, I'm sorry to say that. I know that sounds judgmental, but I mean, literally, this guy is responsible for taking numerous people's lives, and all in the name of whatever, money, ego, whatever you want to call it, right? So that's a loser to me. You know what I'm saying? I'm sorry. It's a loser to me, okay? The lives are lost. Children's bodies are buried in his backyard. And so I'm kind of like this. You go on, girl. Thank you for calling BS out when you saw it. And if, again, if the family is upset with her, whatever it was, or at the time, I mean, again, look at where we're at now. Sadly, all these people's lives are lost. Everyone that marches up there has a different story. Just Heather herself has multiple stories from him about what happened to Tammy. And she's going to call him out. It's like, this is like, what? No, I don't want to meet Lori. Are you kidding? Yeah, you know what I'm saying? That part blows my mind. Anyways, I'll get off my little soap stand. I know this was a long video. I apologize. I was watching this when I was going through the clips I want to talk about. I was like, Paul, it's basically her entire testimony. But all of it spoke to me. You know what I'm saying? So what I'm getting at is I'm sorry that I've made you sit here for a huge long video, but I do thank you if you are still watching. Roscoe gave up. He was like, you talk too damn much talking to me. He was like, you talk too damn much. I gotta go. He was like, I need the bathroom. He's like, I'm too old for this mess. So he's gone, but he does ask that you throw some sofas down in the comment section. So we do have a little place to sit and snuggle and talk about this case and all the other ones. All the other ones that we talk about here at the Sofa Squad. And until we do meander on down there and do that, we'll we'll see y'all soon. I just wanted to say thank you again for watching the whole video, and also thank you for being part of the Sofa Squad. Special thanks to all the Patreon members, channel members from both of my channels, everybody who likes, shares, subscribes, comments in the comment sections. It helps the channel out so much. Now, don't forget, I do have that other channel, the podcast channel. That's where we go live, we hang out, we talk. We have kind of sort of a schedule, but just be sure and check it out. I'll put it up here on the screen. Also, if you're looking for merch, be sure to check out my Teespring store. I'll put that up here. And then, like I said in the beginning of the video, if you want to follow me and Roscoe on the Instagram, go on, check it out. It's right here on the screen again. But once again, thank you very much. I really appreciate you being part of the Sofa Squad, and I'll see you in the next video.